In the spring of 1221, the mountains of Afghanistan echoed with the tension of a world on the edge of collapse. And standing in those mountain passes was a man who should not have survived another hour, Jalal al-Din Mingbornu, the last surviving prince of the Khwarezmian Empire. Behind him, the empire that had once dominated Central Asia had already been reduced to ashes. Cities that had taken centuries to build were now nothing more than blackened ruins. Entire populations had been slaughtered. The Mongol war machine had erased the Khwarezmian world so completely that even the memory of it seemed to be fading into dust. But Jalal al-Din was not fading, not yet. He had watched the Mongol storm destroy everything his family had ruled. He had seen the terrified collapse of his father, Shah Muhammad II, a ruler who once commanded an empire stretching from Persia to the edges of India, but who died fleeing like a hunted animal, leaving his people behind. Jalal al-Din refused to flee, and that one decision would place him directly in the path of the most terrifying military force the medieval world had ever faced. To understand the sheer insanity of what Jalal al-Din was about to attempt, you have to understand what the Mongols had already done to anyone who resisted them. The Khwarezmian Empire wasn't some fragile state waiting to be destroyed. It was a superpower. Its cities vast, wealthy, and fortified. Its armies numbering in the hundreds of thousands. But when a Khwarezmian governor killed a Mongol trade caravan and the Shah supported the action, he unknowingly signed the death sentence of his entire civilization. Genghis Khan didn't respond with a simple invasion. He responded with a policy of total annihilation. The Mongol army, nearly 200,000 elite horse archers, moved like a living storm. They besieged multiple cities at once over distances so vast that no empire had ever defended against it. Samarkand, one of the greatest cities of the Islamic world, fell in just 5 days. Bukhara, a center of culture and Islamic scholarship, was burned to the ground. Entire populations were wiped out. At Nishapur, the Mongols reportedly killed every living thing, humans, animals, even birds. Whether or not the numbers were exaggerated, the effect was real. No one doubted Mongol brutality again. So when Jalal al-Din found himself with barely 30,000 surviving troops, many wounded, many traumatized, most having watched their homes and families destroyed, he wasn't standing against an ordinary enemy. He was standing against a force that had crushed empires larger and richer than his without losing a single major battle. Most commanders, facing the Mongols, tried to fight fire with fire. They kept their cavalry mounted, tried to match Mongol mobility, tried to chase their feigned retreats, and were destroyed every single time. The Mongol composite bow could punch through armor at 200 yards. Their horses were faster, their formations more flexible. Their strategy was simple: keep moving, keep shooting, never let the enemy fight on their own terms. But Jalal al-Din realized something others hadn't. With every victory he studied, he saw the same pattern. The Mongols dominated every battle where they controlled the distance, where they could shoot from far away and force the enemy to move. They avoided battles that forced them into dense, close combat, where mobility meant nothing. So Jalal al-Din made a choice no one in the medieval world would have dared to make. As the Mongols approached through the Parwan Valley, he ordered something that defied every rule of steppe warfare. He commanded his cavalry, men who had trained since childhood to fight on horseback, to dismount. 20,000 horsemen stepped off their animals and formed a shield wall as infantry. Behind them, ranks of disciplined archers prepared to fire from a stable, unmoving position. Only 10,000 cavalry remained mounted on the flanks. It looked suicidal. To the Mongols, who expected a mobile opponent, it must have looked like madness. When Shigi Kotuku, Genghis Khan's adopted son, arrived with 30,000 hardened Mongol veterans, he saw an enemy that wasn't running, wasn't breaking, wasn't behaving like anyone they had ever faced. The Mongols opened the battle with their signature, waves of arrows, shot with terrifying speed. Thousands of arrows filled the sky. Against cavalry, it would have caused chaos, but Jalal al-Din's shield wall held. The men who remained had lived through the destruction of their homes. Fear was something they no longer felt. Because they stood still, their archers returned fire with deadly accuracy. Mounted archers are fast, but shooting from a moving horse demands compromise. A stationary archer shoots straighter, holds formation better, and wastes no energy on maneuver. For the first time in Mongol history, their arrow storm didn't break the enemy line. Hours passed. The Mongols tried feigned retreats, expecting pursuit. None came. They tried charges. Horses fell under concentrated arrow fire. They attempted to encircle the line, but the formation was too tight, too disciplined, too unexpected. And slowly, something impossible began to happen. The Mongols were being exhausted. Jalal al-Din waited. He watched, and when he saw the flanks thinning, when he saw Mongol horses slowing, Mongol archers running low on arrows, he gave the signal. 10,000 fresh cavalry slammed into the Mongol flanks with the force of a hammer strike. Trapped between a wall of infantry and a sudden cavalry assault, the Mongol lines buckled, then collapsed. Panic spread, real panic, something Mongol armies had almost never felt. Men fled through the narrow mountain passes, crushed by their own retreating horses. The impossible had happened. Jalal al-Din broke a Mongol army in open battle. The story spread like wildfire, across Persia, across the Islamic world, even whispered into China and the steppes. People learned the same truth. The Mongols were not invincible. But Jalal al-Din's victory carried a terrible price, one he had not yet realized, because Genghis Khan had never forgiven defiance, and now a man had done more than defy him, and the Mongol response was already coming. Jalal al-Din's victory at Parwan was not just a battlefield triumph, it was a direct challenge to the myth of Mongol invincibility, and that myth was the foundation of Genghis Khan's empire. The moment news reached him that one of his armies had been stopped, not by a fortress, not by famine or weather, but by a man he intended to erase, everything changed. Genghis Khan took the defeat personally. While Parwan celebrated its unlikely hero, the Mongol main army, nearly 50,000 elite warriors, wheeled south with terrifying speed. Their objective was not territory, not plunder, but the annihilation of one man, Jalal al-Din Mingburnu. Every tribe that supported him, every city that opened its gates to him, every refugee camp that gave him shelter, Genghis Khan ordered all of them destroyed. Jalal al-Din, meanwhile, saw his army swelling. Survivors, rebels, warriors from shattered tribes all flocked to the prince who had done the impossible. Within weeks, his force nearly doubled. He had become a symbol of resistance, the one spark of hope in a world crushed by Mongol terror. But with that hope came danger, because hope attracts hunters, and Genghis Khan was already closing in. The Mongols never fought battles they didn't choose. They dictated terrain, weather, timing. At Parwan, the mountains had neutralized their cavalry advantage, so this time Genghis Khan made sure the next battle would not repeat that mistake. He pursued Jalal al-Din relentlessly, burning every possible refuge behind him. While Jalal al-Din's prince tried to rebuild his power, Genghis Khan tightened the noose, refusing to commit until the terrain shifted in his favor. By late 1221, that moment arrived on the banks of the Indus River. Jalal al-Din had marched his army to the edge of the water, hoping to cross into India and regroup. But as his men prepared rafts, dust clouds appeared on the horizon. Mongol scouts, then vanguard units, then the full army marching with terrifying precision. In hours, Jalal al-Din found himself trapped between the vast Indus River behind him and the Mongol main force closing in from all sides. There was no escape. This time, Genghis Khan didn't send a general. He came himself. The battle opened with a tactic perfectly suited to Mongol doctrine, a full encirclement. Jalal al-Din tried to recreate his Parwan formation, dismounted archers forming a solid wall with cavalry on the flanks. But this time the Mongols didn't take the bait. Instead of smashing into the center, they swept around both sides, tightening the circle with mathematical precision. The Khwarezmian infantry, strong when static and facing a single direction, now found arrows raining from all sides. Their shield wall crumbled under crossfire. Jalal al-Din's archers, unable to turn and reposition, were struck from angles they couldn't defend. His cavalry, trapped between the river and Mongol horsemen, had no space to maneuver. The Mongols had learned from Parwan. This time they refused prolonged engagement. They didn't exhaust themselves. They didn't allow flanks to open. They turned Jalal al-Din's greatest innovation into a cage that crushed him. Chaos erupted. Thousands fled toward the river, trampling each other as Mongol arrows slammed into their backs. Horses drowned. Warriors disappeared beneath the water. The Indus became a graveyard. And in that moment, Jalal al-Din faced a decision no commander should ever have to make: die fighting or attempt the impossible. He chose the impossible. With Mongols closing in, he turned his horse toward a towering cliff overlooking the river. Witnesses described what happened next for centuries. Jalal al-Din spurred his horse and leapt 40 feet straight down into the churning waters below, still armored, still under Mongol fire. A fall that should have shattered bone, a river that should have swallowed him, arrows that should have pierced him. Yet somehow he surfaced. He fought the current, he swam, he clawed his way across the river. And on the far bank, drenched, battered, alive, he looked back. Standing on the cliff above him was Genghis Khan, watching. His sons were with him, his generals, his elite guards, thousands of warriors who had burned half the world to the ground. But Genghis Khan did not shoot. Instead, he said a sentence that would be remembered for centuries. A son should be like that. Even the greatest conqueror in history could recognize courage. But admiration did not mean mercy. Genghis Khan ordered the pursuit to continue. Jalal al-Din vanished into the forests of India, beginning a 10-year exile marked by constant flight, betrayal, and shattered hopes. He tried to rebuild his power, but without a stable homeland, without unified tribes behind him, without the resources that had once made Khwarezm a superpower, he never again commanded the strength he had at Parwan. For 10 years he wandered, from Sindh to Punjab, from Kurdistan to the mountains of Anatolia, gathering small forces, fighting minor battles, always hunted. But the Mongols were patient. They didn't need to find him immediately. They only needed to ensure his legend didn't grow again. In 1231, Mongol scouts finally located him. He died not in a grand battle, not leading an army, but in a minor skirmish, cut down far from the empire he once tried to save. With his death, the only man who had defeated the Mongols in open battle was erased from the world he had fought to defend. His revolutionary tactic, dismounted cavalry used as disciplined infantry, died with him. No one survived to teach it. No one preserved the method. And so the Mongols continued sweeping across Asia and Europe, unchallenged until other civilizations independently rediscovered similar tactics decades later. The Mamluks at Ain Jalut would eventually halt them, but Jalal al-Din had done it first, alone, with an army of survivors held together by desperation. The tragedy is that his moment of brilliance didn't become a turning point in history. It became a forgotten miracle. The Mongols ensured it. Every tribe that supported him was exterminated. Every city that aided him was burned. The memory of Parwan was buried beneath fear. But for one brief moment in 1221, a prince with no empire, no allies, and no hope did what no one else had managed. He broke the Mongols. And because of that, Genghis Khan hunted him until the day he died. For Jalal al-Din, victory wasn't triumph. Victory was a death sentence. Yet his stand at Parwan survives as a reminder of something empires fear most, that even the greatest conquerors can be stopped if someone is willing to stand and fight when the entire world chooses to run.